गुरुभ्यो नमः। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विशेषविवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्ते नमः। वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। व्यासं नष्टनप्तहरं शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशराप्नं देशगदातं तमोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय नमो वै ब्रह्मणदेवासिष्ठारमो नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य हरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. So we're looking at in Udhyoga Parva Vidura Niti. So Vidura started explaining the conduct and dharma and everything. So what it should be, how one should behave and what one should look after. All those things on back of Dhritarashtra's question. And why did Dhritarashtra ask? Because he was in anxiety, right? So he had a panic attack. So after Sanjaya came from Upapalabhya, he scolded Dhritarashtra in front of everybody and said, I'm going to tell you all about Pandavas tomorrow in the assembly. And then he walked off. So Dhritarashtra, thinking about that, he immediately called Vidura and he asked what Sanjay might say. And then Vidura explains what is right, what is good for Dhritarashtra, what it should, how we should behave. And he again and again, through giving all the Dharma Shastras and explaining everything, what one should behave and how should one should conduct, what is good, what is bad, what is in between, explaining everything. Vidura says that Pandavas always obey your order, treat them like your sons, and give the kingdom back to Pandavas. So don't punish Duryodhana if needed, but never do any harm to Pandavas. Otherwise, it will lead to complete destruction of Kurus. Then, listening to this, Dhritarashtra again asks, is there anything else that's still unsaid by you? Tell me all those things. Because your discourse, whatever you are telling is very charming. I want to hear more. I'm ready to listen more. Tell me more about this. Then Vidura says, the ancient and immortal Rishi Sanatsujata, who is leading perpetual brahmacharya, has said that there is no death, and that Rishi will expound you more about clarify all your doubts in your minds, and both whatever you have expressed, whatever you are unexpressed, all those things, he will tell you all those things. So who is Sanatsujata? We looked at in Adi Parva, right? He is one of Brahma's sons. And among all the Kumaras, Sanatsujata, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, Sanatsujata, all these are Brahma's Kumaras. They are called Kumaras. There's one of the Brahma's mind-born sons. And he's leading a life of perpetual brahmacharya. What is perpetual brahmacharya? So continuous brahmacharya. So one goes to Guru's ashrama as brahmacharya, following brahmacharya, they continue that. They don't get married and they continue that brahmacharya life throughout their life. And that Rishi has said that there is no death. So Vidura says that he will clarify all your questions, all your answers. He will give you all the answers to the questions in your mind. So Dhritarashtra then says that, do you know that Rishi? Do you know that what he will tell me? And Vidura, it would be great if you have to tell, you can tell me all those things. Because Dhritarashtra was a little bit worried that what Rishi might say, because he's already under anxiety, and if somebody even more learned, superior comes, then that Rishi might even get angry with if he does not listen to him. So that's why he was worried. You could tell me, you have all the wisdom, you tell me all those things. Why we have to go to wait for that Rishi to come? You tell me all those things. Then Vidura says that I am born as a Shudra and I should not expound these things. So whatever up to now Vidura has said is based on the Smritis. So that is the conduct, how one should live, one should behave, what is the qualities one should possess, what is right, what is wrong, all those things he has said in the Smritis. Now, what Sanat Sujata is, Vidura expects him to expound on, discourse on those things, or from the Vedas and Upanishads and things, which is about Parabrahma. So the Vidura says that that is not something I can tell you, because I'm born in a Shudra. I'm born as a Shudra. So here again, it is clear here, Vidura, by declining to explain these things, he says that as a Shudra, I am not allowed to explain those things. So this is again important. The Vedas, Vedangas, whatever Upanishads and those things, and the truth about the discourse about Parabrahma, those things only Brahmanas can explain, Brahmanas can teach. And Vidura, that's why says that I am not allowed to do this. And that Rishi, Sanatsujata, is always leading the life of that Brahmacharya. He is regarded by me to be infinite. He is Paramatma himself. So he knows everything. He is the Brahma himself. He knows everything. And that Brahmana, and he is Brahmana by birth, and he will give you explaining all those mysteries. And by saying those things, by explaining all those things, he will not incur the censure of the devatas. He will not be punished for that. He will not accumulate sin for saying that. So there is two things here Vidura says, right? So the one is, as a Shudra, he cannot discourse on those topics, which he is not allowed to do. Vedas, Upanishads, and the Paramatma and the secrets of those mysteries, those things he cannot discourse. And the second thing he says that if one does like that, who is not allowed to do, they will incur the sins. They will have sins attached to that such a discourse. But here, Sanat Sujata, because he is a Brahmana by birth, he will not incur that censure. So he says that that's why you should listen from Sanat Sujata, not from me. Then, listening to that, Dhritarashtra says, how can I meet that ancient Rishi, that immortal one, who, how can I see him? And then Vidura began to think of that Rishi, offers his prayers to that Rishi, and immediately Sanat Sujata comes there in front of Vidura, and then Vidura worships him, offers him the seat, Arghya, Padya, everything. Once offering that Rishi, which is seated there, Vidura addresses him, says that there are doubts in Dhritarashtra's mind, and which I cannot explain. And you should please explain those things and clarify him and explain all those things. And so that your discourse, whatever you are going to explain, this Dhritarashtra, he may, through the discourse, he may clear all his sorrows. And that profit, dharma, artha, all those things, let him understand. And the gain, loss, what is agreeable, disagreeable, descriptive, death, fright, jealousy, hunger, thirst, pride, prosperity, dislike, sleep, lust, wrath, anger, decrease, increase, all these things are in him. So all these things are in him. So tell me, so what is good for him? And he is ready to listen to all those things. Then Dhritarashtra addresses him, Sanat Sujata. He says that whatever you said, this Vidura said is right. So please tell me all those things. And Dhritarashtra, after saluting, worshipping that Rishi, says that was Sanasujata. I'd like to hear your opinion that there is no death. Because Vidura, when he introduced Sanasujata, he said that this Rishi, immortal Rishi, says that there is no death. He is of the view that there is no death. All right. So if there is no mrityu, there is no death, Dhritarashtra asks why Devatas, Asuras, and all the people practice austerities. Because everyone practices austerities to avoid death, right? If there is no death, why would anybody practice those things? Then Sanat Sujata says that some people says that death is can be averted by particular actions like doing sacrifices and things. Others are the opinion that there is no death. So there is two views here. Sanatsujata says that some think that death can be averted by doing austerities, sacrifices, and all these kind of things. But on the other hand, some people think that there is no death. So what is true? But you asked me which is true. I will tell you all those things and I will remove your doubts. Then he says that the learned people are of the opinion that death results from ignorance. So ignorance here is ajnana. So one who does not realize Paramatma, those people are subject to death. But so Sanatsujata says that the learned people says that ajnana results in death, but I say that ajnana itself is death. Okay, and absence of ajnana, that is having knowledge, is immortality. So the one who realizes Paramatma, that's the immortal person. The person who having that does not realize that Paramatma, that does not have that knowledge, he is dead. He's good as dead. So from that ignorance, asuras became subject to defeat, death, and they have continuous birth and death. That's what they have. So asuras here is general term. So everyone that goes through birth and death is because they have this ignorance, they have this ajnana. But the absence of that ignorance, devatas attained nature of Brahman. So they have attained that Parabrahman, they have attained the grace of that Parabrahman, they have realized that Parabrahman, and that's why devatas are like that. So death, he says that will not devour a creature like a tiger does. Okay, so it does not come and attack and it kills somebody. Okay, its form itself is ascertainable. So you cannot say that death is going to come in this form or something like that. So again, he says some people imagine Yama to be death, but that's their weakness of their mind. So Yama is not the death. The pursuit of Brahman or the self-knowledge, Atma Jnana, results to immortality. So the one who has the Brahman, knowledge of Brahman, the Atma Jnana, results in immortality. So again, all this Atma Jnana comes in summary in Bhagavad Gita, and it explains all those things. We will look at that later. So here, Sanatsujata says that the imaginary devata called Yama, who holds is everybody in the region of who is the takes everyone to the region of Pitrus, is the source of happiness for those who are virtuous, and he is the source of sin for those. He is the source of trouble for those who are sinful, and it is at his command death in the form of anger, ignorance, covetousness that occurs in men. So how Sanatsujata says that death does not come by somebody just dying. He says that death comes in the form of anger, ignorance, covetousness. So these are the causes of death. By pride, what men do is they walk in an unrighteous path. So adharma, one does adharmic path by following because of pride. So I can't do these things. I can't do that. I am superior. All those things, because of that, people follow unrighteous path, adharmic path. Then those people, they never attain the real nature. So real nature is here, Paramatma. They never attain, thus succeed in that attaining that Paramatma, understanding of that Paramatma. That's why they are like that. But with their understanding clouded like that because of pride, anger, ignorance, covetousness, because of all these things, and influenced by the passions, that's the sensual passions, they repeatedly take birth in these bodies and then repeatedly fall to hell. So they take birth, they die. They take birth in these bodies and then they die. So they're also followed by their senses. They can't control, those people cannot control senses, and that's why ignorance receives the name of the death. So Sanatsujata, when he said, I say that ignorance is the death, that's what he meant. He meant that the person who is ignorant, who is not having that jnana, does not realize that Paramatma, he continuously results in taking a new body, new birth, and then growing old, and then getting death, and then born again. So that cycle continues for that. Those people who are desiring uh, fruits of doing something, say for example, one does a puja or sacrifice, or austerities, whatever it is, whatever one does, when that time comes for enjoying that fruit, they give up this body, they go to heaven and enjoy that. But they cannot avoid death because that fruits of that austerities, whatever they did, is limited. So whatever they good things they have done, actions they have done, they enjoy that in the next heaven, and then they come back to their new life. So that's why this cycle continues. These creatures, without attaining the knowledge of Brahma, they this samsara, this worldly enjoyments, because of attachment to those things, they continuously have this birth and death. They go up and down and around. So this cycle continues. So Sanat Sujata says that it's all because of those things. So that's why ignorance is death. The Atma, the Jiva, is constantly affected by the objects that are unreal. So unreal here is Maya. So whatever that's not Paramatma, that's unreal. Everything that's created by Paramatma is unreal. Paramatma is the only. Everything else is Maya, right? So Paramatma is the only real, and everything else is Maya. So that unreal things, in pursuit of those things, remembering that uh, remembering only that with which it's always engaged. The one who enjoys the all the laukika things, that is the whatever in the world, whatever that's available, enjoying those things, Jiva suffers because of that. So it is always pursuing, I want new things, I want a new house, I want a good wife, I want children, I want children to get married, I want this house or car or whatever, right? Or even day-to-day simple things, food and whatever we wish, right? So all these enjoyments, because of that, Jiva suffers. The desire of enjoyment first kills the man, lust, anger follows behind that, and with these three, that is the desire of enjoyment, lust, anger, together, the men uh, will result in their death. So death here is again that what we mean by death is the cycle, right? So it is the cycle that continues because of those things, lust, anger, and desire for enjoyment. So, but one who has conquered his souls, that is, one has conquered his passion and all those things, by self-restraint escapes death. So does that mean here, Sanat Sujata, is he saying that people are not going to die? That means once they are born, their body lives forever? No, it doesn't mean that. He says that this Atma, once one realizes the Atma is the Paramatma, and that realization comes, he is not worried about what happens to this body. Okay, so the body, even though the Atma leaves the body when the old age comes and things, he attains Paramatma. So that's why there is no rebirth for him. So that's why he is immortal. That Atma is immortal. He escapes the death. So that means he never gets that rebirth again. So such a person who has who does not have but the person who does not have those kind of things will suffer, and conquering these things by the aid of Atma Jnana, by realizing that Paramatma, then one avoids death. So Sanat Sujata then continues and he says that this Ajnana, assuming the form of Yama, it comes and devours that learned man who controlled his desires in this manner. So the person who follows his desires is destroyed along with his desires. So it is very interesting. So the person who is following his desires is always destroyed by the desires because he meets that death. He comes into by following that desire, he does not follow Atmajnana, and by doing that, he results in that jiva results in continuous birth and death. So that's why he is destroyed by the desires itself. But on the other hand, the one that can renounce the desire, then that can certainly drive away all kind of pain. So the person who renounces the desire, who gives up the desire, can attain all kind of the uh, happiness, and that happiness is a permanent happiness. So that's why desire is indeed the ignorance. Desire is the ignorance and darkness, and it is the hell. So for all the creatures that go along with what their senses say and they cannot control their senses, those people are affected by this desire. So he says that the person's inside these just like an intoxicated person walking along the street does not know where there are holes or and things like that. He keeps walking around them. Uh, the person under influence of desire is misled by deluding these joys that he encounters in this journey, but he does not know where he is falling. So the death takes such a person, but on the other hand, the death does not touch the one who has realized, who does not have that ignorance, who has uh, done these austerities, who has self-control. That person escapes the death. The jiva uh, is associated with anger, covetousness, everything, and filled with ignorance. So the Yudhishthira, he tells Dhritarashtra that this jiva in what you have is associated with anger, covetousness, and ignorance, and that is the death. Knowing that death comes in this way, the one that relies on the knowledge, that person entertains no fear of the death. So once one realizes Atmajna Paramatma, that realization comes, then he is not feared about death. And such a person, even though uh, uh, just like the body is destroyed when it is brought under the influence of the death, that's why death itself is destroyed when one comes under the influence of the knowledge. So when that realization comes, death itself is the concept of death itself is destroyed. So listening to this, Dhritarashtra then asks, saying that there are sacred and eternal regions where uh, regenerate persons, those who are uh, following the good conduct and actions, they attain by doing the prayer, sacrifices, all those things. But knowing this, why should not a learned person have do the religious actions? So by doing those kind of things, one attains if one attains the sacred regions. Why not one do that? Then Sanatsujata says that it is because without that knowledge, without that Brahma's knowledge, and that's why one does that. The one who's seeking moksha, one who is seeking this knowledge without renouncing the desire, one must have to proceed along the prescribed route of action. So he says that, so this is again two paths here. One is the knowledge path, going with knowledge, attaining that knowledge, but one who cannot renounce the desire, who cannot give up on the desires, that person has to go along the route of action, doing the action. So that action may be doing the prayers or sacrifices or whatever it is. And by doing that, he taking care of, by doing those things, he destroys the vices and he attains virtue. And that leads to, that is the means to then attaining the moksha. That is the means to attaining the uh, realization. But on the other hand, if one is purely announcing, going with the desires, and that person, even though he's doing actions, he's not gaining much. So Dhritarashtra then asks the one that is unborn, ancient one, that is Ajam Puranam, so that's Paramatma. Who is that? If that Paramatma is uh, all in this universe, and he is having entered everything that's created by him, and he is there in everywhere and everything. So his actions or his happiness, what are his why these desires are separate from his actions and things? Again, in Gita, Shankaracharya explains this in very detail, how Paramatma is completely detached from uh, the actions that one does, desires and things like that. So we will look at that later. So Sanat Sujata here again explains that to that question from Dhritarashtra. He says that it is, as you said, the Paramatma creates all those things when using these conditions. So the conditions here are called, see, the Prakriti. When these things come together, Paramatma, all this creation that takes place. But Paramatma is beyond all these creations, and all this appears is nothing but uh, that Paramatma. So everything is Paramatma's creation, but he is beyond that. He is not at all attached to any of these creations. So even though he is there, he is not attached. He is completely independent of everything. And that realization of Paramatma is important. So when one knows that Paramatma is separate, that's important. So then Dhritarashtra asks that in this world, some practice virtue and some renounce action, that is karma. They do not do anything. So by going to sannyasa, uh, so he says that those who practice virtuous actions, virtuous acts, whether that's competent, whether those actions are capable of destroying the sins that one has done. Okay, so whatever the papa, so since one has accumulated, whether the virtuous acts one does, whether that's capable of destroying those things, or is wise uh, the the papa sins overtake the virtuous acts. So always sins always overtake the virtue. So Sanatsujata says that the fruits of the virtue and perfect in action both serviceable in that respect. So that is, they both are good for moksha. So both are good for realizing the Paramatma. Okay. So fruits, the accumulation of the virtue and perfect in action. That's complete renunciation and sannyasa. So both are good, and in going towards that knowledge, acquiring that Paramatma's knowledge. But so the means of attainment, both act as a means of attainment. So if you follow the karma, so do the sacrifices, prayers, whatever it is, so that also is a means of attaining that moksha. So how that goes, so conflicting here. So once we say that the knowledge is important, but then we say that the doing karma is also means for attaining. So the important thing is means. So it is not karma does not result in the karma itself is not the uh, final knowledge, understanding, realization, but it is a means. So that results in the knowledge. So that's why the person who is having, that is wise, achieves success by knowledge. So by doing inaction. So inaction here means complete renunciation. Okay, so that sannyasa, once one has that sannyasa renunciation, such a person attains that knowledge, and by that he achieves the success. But on the other hand, the materialistic persons who acquire merit by action, so by doing something, if let's say I'm doing a prayer or a puja or something and I'm expecting something in return. Okay, I'm doing this puja to attain something. Okay, so because of that, that person, while doing those things, he had also accrues some sin. So because of those desires he's having, and that's why the virtue is there, the vice is there. So the sin is there, the virtue is there, but Sujata is this, that such a person, even though he does that, virtue is always stronger. So the sin he accumulates is lesser than the virtuous things, actions that he has done, and because of that, virtue always wins in those cases. So then Dhritarashtra asks, so according to the gradation of the eternal regions, so the regions one could attain after this life, after the death of this body, leaving this body, one could attain by those virtuous acts, by the people who follow those kind of uh, conduct, who have those kind of, those are regenerate persons, by them who are engaged in virtue. Tell me all those regions. What are those regions they acquire, and tell me all those regions that are similar kind, uh, also of similar kind. So the regions which one are difficult to attain. These are the regions one which attained by those people who do not practice virtue. Okay, even though I do not, my heart, I know where my heart is, the sinful actions that's there. What those regions that comes, even though I do not wish to hear those things, I want to know. So Dhritarashtra here again says that he knows that he himself is committed a lot of sinful actions and he's still doing that. So he is asking what the virtuous people attain, but also he's asking what the sinful people attain, even though he does not want to know those kind of things because it's too scary what might happen after this. But he's still asking Sanat Sujata, saying that tell me all those things. Then Sanat Sujata starts explaining these things. He says that those people who take pride in practicing the yoga, uh, like strong men, uh, in their own strength, after departing this, they attain the region of Brahma. And those people who proudly perform sacrifices and other Vedic rituals as the fruit of their knowledge, which is theirs, those persons, freed from, once they are freed from this world, they go to the Devatas region. So they attain the heaven, and that's where they go. So the first one who practice the yogas, they go to Brahma's region, and those who do the sacrifices and other things, they go to Devatas region. And there are again those who have the knowledge of Vedas and those who are opinion of that the sacrifices, everything should be performed because it's obligatory. Say, for example, I must do fast on Ekadashi. Okay, so I must do this, or I should not eat these things, or I should do those kind of prayers, morning, evening, Sandhya prayers. I need to do. I need to do Agnihotra or whatever it is. One should do. They know that these are the uh, one should do. There is an obligation that we have to do those kind of things, and their view is that not doing those things is sinful. Such a persons, they do those things, but they are not regarded very highly because they, even though they have some respect, they are not regarded as very highly because they are doing it with their own they are still expecting some return in return. So they are doing, by doing these things, I'm going to get something. Okay, that's why they are doing those kind of things, but not pure mind and pure heart. That's why they, even though they are better than those who do not do anything, they are in the middle range. Again, whatever, then he talks about a little bit where he says, Sanatsujata says that the where there is food, drink, all these things are abundant. That's where Brahmana, a yogi should go. but he should not go where the householder is already living on, householders are already poor. So where there is abundant food and drink, that's where yogi should go and do his things and live. And the place where there is inconvenience and danger to one should not disclose the superiority. And that places, even if, say, for example, going and saying that I know all these Vedas, I know all these things, I'm superior and I'm such a knowledgeable, whatever it is, one should not do in those kind of things. The food is, so the key thing, what he's saying here is a Brahmana knowing all those things, by disclosing the superiority, if he gains something, okay, so for example, oh, this learned Brahmana has come and let's give him the gift or whatever, dana, whatever it is, if one thinks like that, because you go and disclose that I learned all these things, I have done these sacrifices, I've done this many austerities or whatever, vratas and whatever. If one discloses all those things, his superiority, and through that, if one gets the dana, that dana is like a dog eating its own vomit. Okay, so it is not good. So Sanat Sujata says that such a person, yogi, is like eating. Is by doing that, he is not going to get any benefit from those kind of things. So that's why he says that the Brahmana who is living among everybody, uh, even within the family, whatever the religious practices he does, such a person should not disclose anything. So he should not proudly go and tell everybody that I'm doing these things, I'm doing those things, I'm doing that vrata and those kind of things. One should not do. So such a person, who is doing those kind of not doing those kind of things, he is not. He is the one who deserves to know the supreme. So he is the one who deserves to know the Paramatma. So such a practices, uh, even Kshatriyas, once they do, they can realize their own Atma, the Atma and Paramatma, the common things. They can realize that. So again, Sanasujata says that a Brahmana without exertion should never accept gift. So he should always uh, learn and do his things, and then only he accept dana. And without doing that, he should never do that. So then he also says, then Dhritarashtra asks again, what is the object of mauna? So asceticism, what is the object of that? What are the two kinds of the two kinds of mauna? That is, one is controlling one's speech, another one is meditation or restraining from speech, another one meditation. Which one is approved by you? And again, by is it possible, by can a person who attain the state of quietude and moksha by mauna? So through mauna can one attain the moksha, that things? And is it, how it is practiced here? And Sanasujata briefly answers that the Paramatma cannot be penetrated by Veda and mind. It is, that's why Atma is called Mauna. And so the Vedic syllable, Pranava syllable, Om, is the sound, and that sound is displayed as a word. And through that only one can attain Paramatma. So he says that one should uh, repeat those kind of mantras. So again, this is, even though it is said here, we do here and other places that this is only those who can repeat those things, right? So not everyone. So this again, karma is important. What one can do and should not do, should do all those things. So here explains that through that mauna, one can attain Paramatma. We'll look at next Dhritarashtra's questions and things like that, further questions and answers next time. Any questions?